That looks good. Okay, cool. What's happening?
Welcome back to the channel. I was doing a studio shoot with a client and I thought, you know, while it's all set up beautifully, let's use it for a YouTube video. So here we are, recapping. So I'm just back from a trip to Rome, all right? If you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen the bits and pieces and the photos and things like that. By the time you're watching this, it's probably 35 decades since I went there because I'm a fucking procrastinator and just keep putting off doing these videos and editing stuff. Do you know what? When you do this for a living and you shoot videos and you edit videos and you take photos and you do it for people for a living, it's very difficult to muster up the enthusiasm sometimes to do your own stuff, even though deep down I really want to do it. It's the physical act of having to do it, like set up cameras and do these things. So that's why I thought, well, let's set up, let's friggin' go for it. So here we are, right? Now, so this trip, all right, was in conjunction with a company called The Holiday Ninja. If you've watched my YouTube videos before, you may have seen the one I did last year in Edinburgh with my buddy Dan. Now, Holiday Ninja are like a one-stop shop based in Northern Ireland. Fluff. Basically holiday packages all over the globe. That's the gist of them, right? So I went out there to shoot this stuff for Instagram, for them, and I also decided to film some stuff landscape for the YouTube channel, as if there wasn't enough to doing Instagram stories and taking photographs, and then I decided to shoot YouTube videos, and all the while I had to look after my son and entertain him and hang out with him and enjoy the holiday thing, because I thought it'd be interesting. I had a chat with my wife. She was going to come with me initially, decided in the end to take my 10-year-old son Noah with me. We went down the night before and stayed in the Clayton Hotel. That was a decision I had made because I was like, I don't feel like driving to Dublin at 3 o'clock in the morning to get to the airport for 4:30. So we went to the Clayton Hotel the night before, down by the airport, left the car there, got down. Dublin airport was empty. There was no one around. Apparently Terminal 2 only opens at 4 o'clock in the morning. We were there at like, 4:15, so there was no one around. It was bliss. It was absolute bliss. Through security in minutes. Hopped on the plane, right? We flew off. So that was that was good, because that's what you do when you get to an airport. You fly. We get into Leonardo Airport, just outside Rome, like 35 minutes away. Hopped on this train thing that blasted us in. I'm saying train thing. It's just a train. We just jumped on a train that took us into Rome. Hopped out at the train station, noise and buzz everywhere. It was pretty cool. And then we walked around to our hotel where we were going to be staying for the next few days, which is quite close to the train station. Tried to cross the road. Holy shit! The rules are like guidelines. You know, it's like this is a zebra crossing where you can cross, but it doesn't really mean that the cars are going to stop. They just fucking go for it. They drive up, and then you have to walk across. And as you walk across, they just fucking go like that. So you're just like almost dodging. You're almost just dodging between cars, like that, across the street, right? Just dancing across the road. It was like fucking La La Land. And just cars all over the show.
So we're in Rome for a few days, for 4 days I think. Mostly here just to shoot, well, here to enjoy the holiday, that's the main goal. And then I shoot Instagram stories about the trip for the Holiday Ninja. They send me away on a cool trip, I tell people about it, and then we all win. I, of course, started the entire trip with serious amounts of camera anxiety, like gear anxiety, which camera to bring, which one not to bring. I made the very risky decision of bringing the A6300, which is the smaller APS-C setup, a couple of lenses, a wide, a 50, and a zoom. Because it was, I don't know, it felt like the best one. We may regret that, we may not, but that's what we've got, so that's what we'll use. I'm gonna go check out Trevi Fountain.
I decided then to go to Trevi Fountain, which my wife was like, don't go to Trevi Fountain, it'll be ridiculously busy. We went around, it was empty. Now, bear in mind, right, we went there in February, out of season, on purpose. When the dudes at the Holiday Inn just spoke to me, I was like, I'll go to Rome, but don't be sending me there when it's tourist season. Find the worst time of year to go. Send me then, please, because I actually can't cope with the sensory overload of all the people. So that's why we were there in February, which was a perfect time to go to Rome. It was amazing. Everything was empty. There were no queues. So yeah, we did that. We went over to Trevi Fountain, had a little nosy about, looked at all the people doing things, threw some coins into the fountain, and then went and got some pizza at this little local pizzeria. It was freaking great. Chilled out, and then go back to the hotel. So there you go. I was pottering about editing my Instagram story for the day because I do all my Instagram stories filmed and edited on the phone. All right, using a bunch of different apps over the years. Recently, I've been using CapCut, which, if you haven't tried CapCut, it's amazing. It's an incredible app for editing on your phone. The only downside to it is owned by ByteDance, which is this parent company that owns TikTok. And TikTok, I hate TikTok. I hate that app. I hate what it does. Look, let's not get into that. It's for another story. I'm not joking. It works better than any other editing app that I've used so far. Like Adobe have Premiere Rush, which is supposed to be their mobile video app, and it's average at best. It has loads of problems and lags, and if you're not connected to the internet, sometimes you can't open file. CapCut just works fast, never freezes, never crashes. The music on it is free. It's scarily, you know when you're like, this is too good to be true, and you know when people go like, if all this shit's free, you're the product? That's what's happening. Look, use it with caution. For the time being, I'm using CapCut to have a play with it. It's friggin' unbelievable. So I'm sitting editing the stuff, and he's sitting watching TV on the bed next to me. I look up after about like 45 minutes of me editing this thing, and I'm like, what are you watching? It's like Italian gumball. So he's sitting watching Italian cartoons, and I was like, you okay with this? He was like, yeah, it's fine. And the next day was the first of our attractions. Now, when the guys at the Holiday Ninja, they were like, we need you to go to some sort of popular destination. I was like, that's fine. That's all right. Went to the Colosseum first. Now, I was expecting this, like, monster of a thing. Like, it was big. It was very big. And it was incredible. It was really, really worth it. It was really awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed my trip to the Colosseum. But it was way smaller than I imagined. When I got there, the building itself outside was big. It wasn't huge. And then when you got into it and you saw the grounds, right? Like by the way, my knowledge of Roman history is literally from Asterix and Obelix cartoons as a kid. And the 1959 movie Ben-Hur with Charlton Heston. In my head, you know, when you get to the Colosseum, it's huge. And in my head, there's Julius Caesar on a fucking chariot with knives and flames and shit, and fucking riding around this thing chasing people. If you had a horse, and you went go, it would hit the other side in seconds. It isn't that big. I don't know where you would ride a chariot with a horse, but it's not going to be in the Colosseum floors. It's not that big, unless you're going round it in loops, like a bloody stock car. But even at that, it's not going to be that easy. It's quite small. That bit of it is quite small. I also learned that Julius Caesar never stepped foot in the Colosseum ever. He died like 125 years before the Colosseum like opened up for its games. Death. What the fuck was I watching? I kind of want to go back now and watch Ben-Hur and see what the hell that was about, because in my mind they were always in the Colosseum. You know, and Julius was there with his little leaves around his head. What does a Roman soldier say? It's not on guard. That's something else, you know? Yeah, it was great. The whole Colosseum was super chill. Really nice, relaxing place. We just meandered about, stood in different places and looked out. It was class. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And then we took a trip out around the back of the Roman Forum bit, which is this like old part of old Rome, I guess, all around the place. Now, the one thing to bear in mind, all right, which I found quite interesting, was I imagined there to be like grandeur. Like I thought it was gonna be this huge city where like you'd walk amongst columns and marble arches and stuff. And they were there, but they weren't, they were destroyed. They were ruined because it's ruins. And it's like they've just let the city crumble around, and then they've just built generic Italian city shit around it. So yeah, bear that in mind. You're walking around the city and it's like it's what I would imagine any other Italian city to be like, and then there's some rocks and rubble is what I was calling it, and you're like, oh, that's some old Roman shit. It is quite fascinating when you see it, but you do have to stop and you really have to use your imagination, because you're like, it's kind of like you've got to a building site but they've knocked everything down, and you have to look at the picture and go, oh yes, that was what that looked like, was it? And you're looking at it going, it's just a pile of dust. So take your imagination with you when you go to Rome.
So the Roman Forum is kind of cool looking. You can decide to pay in if you want to go in and have a look and walk around. You can get down at ground level. Express tourists is how Pamela and I always describe ourselves. Get in, see the thing, take a box, get the flock out of there. Like, this is the back of the Roman Forum area, and you can get decent access by just walking around the public roads. You know, look at that. Look how close we are.
We just walked around, stuck our head through gates, climbed up on walls and stuff, and got the gist of what it was, you know, more rocks and rubble. It was really, really good. And then we walked out to a part of the town called Trastevere. Now, a lot of people were saying to me, Dill, go to Trastevere. It's like their hipster vibe. Obviously, they thought I'd fit in there, you know, with my fucking fleece and my flat caps. All right, folks, craft beer, that kind of vibe. That's exactly what I did. Me and the wee man walked over, which was totally within walking distance. Got over to Trastevere, beautiful part of town. These little, like, windy roads and paths and cobble streets and like bushes and shit hanging down over the roads, and Vespas and little weird like Fiat cars parked everywhere. Went into this Italian sandwich shop. I mean, it's just a sandwich shop because it's in Italy, but went into the sandwich shop, stood there. I was at the wrong side of the queue, stood there for far too long, and then I realized, oh, the queue's that way. No one told me. Get up to the dude, right? He goes, buongiorno, and I was like, all right. Do you speak English? And he's like, no, Italian. And I'm thinking, that was English. And then I said to him, I don't speak Italian. And he goes, you try. It was like, fucking, sorry, what? What do you mean? Try. Like, I don't speak it, bro. I can't learn it on the spot. So then he laughs and he goes, what do you want? And I was like, just 2 of those ham rolls. And then we had a bit of a banter there. And then I wanted what was definitely a pane chocolat, right? And I was like, can I get a pane chocolat? And he goes, no, Saccatoni. I think that's what he said. I think that's what it was called. And I went, what? And he goes, Saccatoni. And I was like, pane chocolat. No, Saccatoni. And then I was like, dude, pane chocolat is a French pastry. It's pane chocolat, regardless of where you are in the world. You can't just change the word. And he goes, no, this is Italian. This is an Italian one. It was a fucking shiny pane chocolat. They just glazed it with some sugar and something. The next to me was having a field day, laughing at me. This clampet standing in this shop trying to order food, and Noah's looking at me as if to be like, are we going to eat? And I'm like, chill out, fella, I got this. Pane chocolat. Just put your hand up like that. Got the sandwich. Fucking amazing sandwich. Really, really cool. We just sort of dicked around there, had a gelato and mucked about.
One thing I read was try loads of different gelato places, because some of them are shit and some of them are amazing. One we had yesterday was okay. That is friggin' delicious. It's also a great sales pitch, if that's like the Italian tourist board telling people to do that. Just try gelato, at least 2 a day, everywhere you go, until you find the one you like.
We saw this little craft beer place, and I was like, that's cool, let's go and check that out. So we went in, and I ordered a beer first, and then I was like, can I also get a Coke for this dude? We don't do Coke. And I was like, right, okay, fair enough. She goes, you can go down the street and get a Coke from the mini market and bring it back up. And I was like, class, but you've just given me a pint of beer. She's like, that's fine, take it with you. I thought, fucking hell. So me and him walked down the street with this pint to this shop, and I was like, what the hell do I do here? So I was like, you hold the pint, I'll go in. So I went into the shop, and he stood outside with a pint of beer, just in the middle of the street. And I went and got him a can of Coke and came back out. Because if I'd asked him to go in and speak to this dude, he'd got lost. He'd ended up locked in a fridge. And then we walked back up the road and sat down and had a beer outside. But what was funny was, there's this tiny little doorway and there were these other bros, right? And the reason this place caught my attention is they were wearing similar attire to what I'm wearing, right? Carhartt association by clothing. Anyway, I looked at these two bros and I was like, well, I'm vibing with these dudes. So I gave them that downward nod that you give to, like a guy will give to another guy that he doesn't know that he's passing. It's like this here, all right? You only do the upward nod if you know them and you're going to engage in some chat. You go, what's up? That's the code. That's the guy code, right? Downward nod if you're passing, right? Upward nod if you're stopping to chat. What's up? I gave them the downward nod, right? Then they went, all right? And I thought, fuck, we're in here. Then I realized it was a tap room. And then I was like, all right, cool. So then I went in and ordered a beer. Just bro code working perfectly there. They were hanging out the door, right? About this far out. Say that's the door. They were like this far out the door with a cigarette, a little rolly. I got, and I was thinking, you are only just ticking the box of smoking outside. Most of you is inside the establishment, but that bit of you is outside. And that was kind of the guidelines again of, Italy. You're not allowed, you can't smoke inside. Okay. Am I outside? Well, the cigarette's outside, so you're fine. Before we made our way back to our hotel. Class, like walking through, sun setting behind the buildings, really like chill, orange light, all the shutters, the buildings like oranges and pinks. It was very, very cool. And then we went to this little pizza pastery joint. I had some carbonara. Strictly no cream. Not for me, to be honest. Prefer cream. I make a killer carbonara, and it has cream in it. Now, I know that's not technically a carbonara, but I prefer mine to Italy's. So, dear Italy, I make a better carbonara, in my opinion. So we did that, and then we went back to the hotel, chilled out again. I learned there what's shit about traveling with a kid is you can't enjoy the nightlife. But what's great about traveling with your kids is it's like an excuse to go back to your hotel room at 7:30 at night and just go like that. That's me for the day, folks. No one speak to me. It was brilliant. We just chilled out in the evenings. Day 3 was the Vatican City. If you don't know, it's the head of the Catholic Church. It's where the Pope resides. It's like its own city-state. Apparently it's the smallest city-state in the world, both in population and in size. So you can get into the city for free, but we went to the museums, which you have to pay for. It's freaking brilliant. It was really, really interesting. The amount of money in the Catholic Church is insane. Absolutely insane. These buildings were what I was imagining Rome to be like. Pristine marble, staircases covered in gold leaf and things like that, and tapestry from the ceiling to the floor, paintings, artworks, statues of Roman dudes, like most of it was over my head. I hardly knew what a lot of it was, but it was very interesting walking around. Some of the artworks and detail was, especially there was a one called like the Gallery of Tapestry, and it was like a 250-meter long corridor just with these huge tapestries designed by Raphael, not the Ninja Turtle, the fucking artist, right? That was kind of cool. And the whole way through this journey, there's these signs going Sistine Chapel, right? You make your way to Sistine Chapel. Eventually you get to this little corridor and it's like up these stairs, perfect little like arched roof with paintings, and we got into the Sistine Chapel. Now, I know a bit about art. Not a lot, but I know some stuff. Got into Sistine Chapel. Do you know the painting, this beginning of Adam, the start of Adam, the creation of Adam? And he's like, God is like standing with his finger out. And Adam was like that. And they're touching fingers. I thought that was going to be massive. I thought that was going to be the bulk of the Sistine Chapel. It's not. It's a very small tile in a lot of different artwork. It took me ages to find it. And I was going, where is that one with the two fellas touching fingers? Looking around until I eventually saw it. And I was like, there you go. Done. Tick that off my list of things to do in life. You are strictly not allowed to take photographs in the Sistine Chapel. All right? Now I read this and it says it's not a law. It's just a rule. It's a rule that they decided. Which was convenient because my camera accidentally fired a photograph. I was holding it like that, just in my hand, and it like just down, you know, between my legs, and it accidentally took a really well-framed photograph of the whole room. What was I didn't realize till I got out and was like, oh look, so I have a photograph of Sistine Chapel. That's what it looks like there. All right, pretty cool, huh? Interesting place though. Left, sat outside in this little garden, chilled out, had a little coffee, watched everybody meander about before we eventually went in to the rest of the Vatican City. There's this big square called St. Peter's Square. It's a fucking circle. I walked in, I was like, this is round. This isn't a square. I don't think you know what a square is, guys. And we just watched people do things, touristy stuff for a while before we walked back to our hotel. It was good though. But highly recommend Vatican City, Vatican Museums, absolutely worth it. Very, very cool. Very, very interesting. Anyways, we went back, had some dinner down by the Roman Forum, enjoyed the sunset before we meandered back, and went past the Colosseum at night just to see what it looked like. That was kind of cool, the way it lights up back roads and everything. And then kicked off back to the hotel. Day 4, final day was good, but I was super lazy, and me and the wee man were knackered from walking about 20,000 steps every day. Legitimately walking 20,000 steps. I think we were doing like 17, 18K a day. It was a lot of walking around. But fueled by pizza and gelato, we decided to start off with a bus tour. Now, in hindsight, I'd have done the bus tour at the beginning because it would have given me my bearings a little better. We did the bus tour at the end, you know? You live and you learn. It's great. We just sat in the bus for a couple of hours and just went around the city, cruising about, hopped off at a couple of little spots, went to these Spanish steps, took photos of people.
So we're up in the area of Campo Maggio. Just take a little nosy around, place little Spanish steps, get a pizza before we head back to the airport.
Now bear in mind it's out of tourist season, and I was looking at all the tourists taking photos while simultaneously taking photographs, and I was thinking, that's a lot of content. And like, I know that I'm doing it as well, but everyone does it. And I always look around and think, where's that gonna go? You know, you see some lady with her flip case, iPad, taking a photo. I get it, take a photograph, move on. But everyone's doing it constantly, and they're like taking millions of photos. I'm thinking, well, where is all this going? I imagine there are those people that upload an album to Facebook, and they upload like 130 photographs of their trip down the street, and there's like 40 photographs that are all the same, and everyone's just in slightly different poses. It just made me realize, I was like, we are, as a community, shooting a lot of content. Most of it is probably shit. How much of that's being uploaded to the internet? Does it need to be uploaded to the internet? Be a bit more selective about what you capture. Photo, move on. One photos, and that's why I miss the old days of film cameras, where you were forced to be very selective and thoughtful about what you photograph or film. Where now it's just like, I don't know what this is. Went for a little walk, found this little pizzeria, had a little chat to the dude. Lovely little end to the trip. Before meandering back towards the train station and then hopping on the train. Now, when I got to the train, this was quite interesting. We got to the train station. I could not work out how the machines work to buy a ticket because I'm a bit of an idiot at times. So I went over to this woman and I was like, excuse me, it was a big help desk area for the train station. I want to buy some tickets. She's like, no problem, let me get this. So she calls this young fella over and he walks over and she's like, these two, says something to him. He says to me, follow me. And I walk behind him like a duck the whole way down, right? He takes me to one of the machines that I had been at, right? And then he just clicks English, and then he clicks one adult, one kid, and he goes, where are you going? And I went, airport, and he just went, airport, and then he goes, pay, and then he takes my card and he taps it on the screen. Like that. But he looked at me, right? So he was like this. Beep. He didn't go beep, the machine went beep. And then my ticket printed out. But he did it so well. It was like, here you go, idiot face. Beep, here's your ticket. So we walked off, got on the train. Kids were free on this train thing. So we're sitting there. Dude comes down, he's checked tickets. Comes over to me, he's like, tickets, and I show him 2 tickets. He looks at me, he looks at Noah, and he looks at the thing, and he says, have you got any, he says, can I see ID? And I was like, why? He's like, I need to see ID because kids travel free, so I need to see the kid's age. And I was like, fucking slide on, fella. Like, you don't need to see his age. The dude at the thing did it. And I was like, oh, fuck, really? Yeah. And I was like, oh, fuck, so digging through the bag to get the passports out, show him it. And he's like this. I thought, God, this job's worth. Get to the airport, go in, scan things, go in, and then the person just before security takes the passports and wants to check the passports. We're the only ones being stopped. I was like, fluff. I was like, why are we being stopped? Then we get up to the passport control. Oh my God. And the woman looked at me like this. And she looked at Noah. And she looked back at me. She went, passports. And I was like, there you go. She's like this. Noah? And he goes, uh-huh. Is this your dad? And Noah was like, uh-huh. And I was like, nice one, mate. Well done. And then she looked at me. Where are you going? Where's your final stop? Where have you been? Why are you traveling? And I was like, fuck me, do you want to put your finger up my bum as well here? Like, can we go home, please? And I thought, this is so weird. Got through security eventually, and then we got up to the friggin' train, the bit where you get onto the plane. And I went up to beep the boarding pass. And I swear, just before I beeped it, I looked at the guy, and he was like this. And he went, just before it went, and a big red X came up on the screen. But he did a fraction of, and I'm very alert to things like this, all right? Hypersensitive to stuff. So I clocked that he responded a fraction of a second before it went, and I was like, and he goes, thought that was gonna happen. Did you, mate? Did you? Why? Scans Noah's, he's like, passports. I was like, fuck sake, I'm not a drug mule. I'm just a guy who's had a lot of pizza and gelato who wants to go home and buy his son a tub of Pringles and a can of Coke on the plane. Can we please go home? So then they took the things, and then he's like, type. That's him typing the numbers on the passport. And he's fucking scanning the passport and all this shit. And eventually, everyone's going through, and I'm like, I'm glad I paid for the priority booking so you could fuck me around right at the last hurdle. Eventually, we get onto the plane, and I was like, what the hell? Anyway, plane was grand back. Noah got snacks. We had a blast. Got to the car and got home. When I told Pamela that story, I was like, fucking airport, being sticklers, like checking the passports like you won't believe. And then she goes, they were probably looking at it for human trafficking. And I was like, what? And she's like, you're a single male by himself traveling during school season with a child. They're just being diligent to make sure that you haven't abducted somebody while you're away. And I was like, oh, fair play, folks. You did a great job. So actually the airport and the team in Aer Lingus were doing an outstanding job, being very diligent to make sure that he was my child and I was legally transporting him around the world. So, you know, things you learn when you travel. But it was a good fun trip, thoroughly enjoyed it. Shout out to the Holiday Ninja for hooking me up, and hope if you saw the content on the Instagrams, hope you enjoyed that. I hope you've enjoyed this very long video talking about a trip to Rome. I kind of feel like this probably should have just been part of the Shove It podcast, but it's not. I don't know why. It probably should have been. But there you go. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Here's a selection of photographs to end the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.
you.